Hi guys, I'm here with a Yu-Gi-Oh! Market Watch. Today I wanted to go over some of the newer sets that are out and look at some cards that could potentially move up in price. And then I also want to look at some other cards that have gone up in price as well. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I wanted to go over is the 2021 Ten of Ancient Battles. If you missed a chance to pick up a case to hold on to, they're now around like $200, which I think is a very fair price. It's around MSRP. I think that this is something you could pick up and hold for like maybe 6 months and then end up selling for around the same price that the 2020 Megatons are going for, which is around 450, I think. But we can look at some of the cards in here. The first one to go over is Crossout Designator. This card definitely went lower than what I was expecting. I thought it would settle around 75, and it just hasn't seen a lot of play in top cut decks. But I think it's going to be sort of like Dragoon, where it did initially come down to around this price and people weren't playing it that much, and then it just came into the meta here and there. And I think this is going to be the similar situation where there will be decks that are using this. So I think that it definitely has potential to go back up towards the 85 range, just depending on how much play it sees. The next card I want to go over is Triple Tactics Talent. It's going for around 42 to 45. We'll take a look at it here. And surprisingly, I've seen this card being played a lot more than I've seen Crossout Designator, which I did not expect. But it's around 42 right now. I think that's pretty high. I think honestly, if you're going to go for this, just get the secret rare, even though it is, I think, let's see what the secret rare is going for before I tell you to do that. Okay, so it's 93. So yeah, it's more than double. So if you really want to play it, then just get the ultra rare. But if you are thinking you want to hold on to this card for a long time, I think the secret rare will always keep decent value. Even when this was released, and it was initially like $30, I think, for 30 to 35 for a while for Triple Tactics Talent. The secret rare like bottomed out to like $78 to $80. So it's definitely not going to flop nearly as hard as the ultra rare, because if we get another reprint, the ultra rare is probably going to be 20 bucks. And then let's go back and look at some more. One other thing that I wanted to point out in the Megatons is if you are interested in getting the Ignister stuff, I would go ahead and get it now, because you can get stuff like for pennies on the dollar. And I just saw, I think it was last weekend, that the Extravaganza in Australia, there were two Ad Ignister decks in Top Cut, which I think is insane. But I think you can get most of the core for $1 or under. We'll look at some of it. Let's see. I picked up a couple of play sets of like each of the most important cards out of here, just because I think that it has potential if it keeps doing well. It's definitely a pretty tough deck to beat. If you've ever played against it, they just put up basically like a tower, and it's almost impossible to get over it. Let's see, it's back here. But really, any of the deck cores that were meta this past year or now, I would pick those up from here because they're ridiculously cheap. Yeah, so it's the Chi-Chi and Picari are 25 cents each, along with Ad Ignister. And even if you don't want to play the deck, I'd say get 6 copies of each one of these. That's all you really need to hold for like an investment. And I can definitely see these going to dollars plus, probably $1.50 in probably 6 months or so. So if you each want to pick up 6 copies to have, it's also really good to have things like this and hold for trade fodder. Like, so once these go up to like $1.50, you might not necessarily want to go through the hassle of going and selling online and paying fees. But if you have like play sets of it, it's pretty easy to move at your locals, like if you wanted to trade for something. So I think that's also a good option. But there are tons of cards in this set that I think have potential to go up in value. I think it's bottomed out pretty hard now, and I don't see things getting much cheaper than they are now. Magician's Salvation is one that we saw go up to $7 to $8. I would pick that up. I don't really like Piercing the Darkness, which is the other card that was in here for Dark Magician. I just thought it's not a very strong card, but I think Magician's Salvation has really cool artwork with both Dark Magician Girl and Dark Magician in it. And I'm keeping a play set myself, but I might pick up some more if it gets down to like 50 cents. But other good cards in this set: Fallen of Albaz, especially with the structure deck coming. I think it's coming. I don't know if it's confirmed yet for the US. I forget, but I definitely would pick these up. At least just your play set, because if you want to play the deck, I imagine it's going to be a pretty cool deck. It'd be worth it. I'm imagining that people are probably going to play like a Fallen of Albaz with Despia or maybe even Dogmatica. Metal Cruncher is also a decent card that I would consider picking up, just if Earth Machines ever do anything. And then also Adamancer Signs, just because this deck could come back at some point, just depending on what decks get hit on future ban list. Just because Adamancer is still a very strong deck. It's, I would say, tier 2, and it's a deck that can put up an extremely strong turn 1 board. Its main issue is recovery. So if you went first and you put up a strong board and someone dark rulered you, you'd pretty much have like no follow-up play for the most part. So I think with future cards coming out and potential on the ban list, I would say the deck still has a lot of potential. That deck's crazy though. That's probably it's probably the tier 0 deck that never saw play in a tournament, which is crazy to think about since it came out during COVID. Zeus is also a good pickup for around 12, 13 bucks. But I would say get a secret rare if you're looking to invest, because secret rares are, I think, around 18 to 20. And I think that's definitely the version that will go up in the future, as long as it doesn't get like an ultimate rare print. But even if it gets an ulti print long term, the secret rare is still going to be pretty valuable just because it was the first print. Another thing that I would look at getting is the Phantom Knights cards, just because I think the deck has a ton of potential going into future sets. It's one of those decks that's always riding the line between tier 2 and tier 1. It definitely tops quite a bit still. Other than that, I would pick up any like staple cards that can be played in multiple decks are always good pickups, and they always go up in value. One example would be Ghost Mourner, Moonlit Chill. But in this case, like if this is what you can afford, then that's fine. I think you'll definitely see good value out of it. But if you can get the secret rares, that's where you're going to see a lot of money. I think one day we'll definitely see people start to collect the high rarity Ghost Girls. And in my opinion, this is the second coolest one underneath Ash Blossom. The secret rare looks absolutely insane. I wish I still had mine. I sold them before the Mega 10s came out. Now I have the ultra rares, but I'm waiting to see the price fall a little bit on the secret rares before I pick those up. They're still up around like $18. Let's see. Rose is another really good card that you could pick up. I think the only problem is now it's getting a maximum gold. So I wouldn't pick this up now, but if after maximum gold comes out, if this is down like 50 to 50 cents, I would definitely pick it up. And then this is probably one of the most underrated cards in this set, which is Gravedigger's Trap Hole. This card was $30 before the reprint for a while. I don't know. I think like maybe the last couple of months it did cool down to 25. But this being at $1.50 is absolutely insane. This is a really good card to have laying around. You never know when it could see play, especially in trap decks where you're utilizing like the trap trick stuff. I had played trap tricks for a while, and this card would like pretty much almost get you game. Because if you drew one and you had your Rafflesia on board, I had multiple games where that came up and it was like 4K damage for game. Other than that, that's most of the cards that I would pick up in this set. I mean, there's no, even on this first page, there's no bad cards to pick up. Tri Brigade stuff is good. Dogmatica stuff is good. I have mixed feelings on Parallel Exceed. I think it looks better than the super rare, but I kind of consider the super rare the harder version to get. So I'll probably still play the super rares just because I think they look super clean, even though I do like the secret rares as well. Ecclesia still seems pretty expensive, but if you want to play it like I do at some point, I would pick them up. The Deers are very cheap though too. That's another card I don't think I mentioned yet. It's unfortunate that the Rise of the Duels was so short printed, because there's a lot of cards that I sold from that set that I was like, I'll just wait till it gets reprinted. it'll drop a ton in price and then it'll pick them back up. But in this case, they really didn't drop too much at all. The next thing I want to go over is Baronet de Fleur. I'm pretty excited about this card. I've been messing around with Synchro for the last month, and this card's really, really strong. If you haven't read it, I'll read it to you because probably a lot of people haven't. But it says once per turn, you can target one card on the field, destroy it. Once while face up on the field, when a card or effect is activated, you can negate that activation if you do destroy that card. So right away, it's a negate and it's destruction. And then the last one doesn't really come up as much, I don't think, but it's an option to float monsters if you want a combo. So I don't think that it's necessarily a bad thing to have, but it says you can target one level 9 or lower monster in your graveyard, return this to the extra deck if you do special summon that monster. So I could see maybe it coming up where you're kind of having a hard time comboing like on a follow-up play. And maybe that could get your combo going where you could then go into more extension and then get this card back out. So I don't think that's a terrible thing to have access to. But we'll look at the set as a whole, though. I really think that this is one of the best legendary duelist packs they've come out with in a long time. Probably since Magical Hero. Especially for Synchro, just because there's a lot of good Synchro stuff in here. And then I was looking at this earlier and I noticed the Ghost Rare was 120. And that to me is unbelievable because it's a crystal, I mean, it's a clear wing card, which is one of my favorite like Synchro series sets of card at least. And I think that this should be worth a lot more. The ratios are pretty good for this though. It's not super short printed. It's about 1 per case. I think I heard that maybe 1 out of 10 like doesn't have that in there, but there's a lot of value in this pack, and I wish I would have picked these up. I would have been able to get them for $40 a box, but at that point I didn't know anything that was going to be in it, so it would be rolling the dice, and I really don't like doing that. It's one thing for Megatins because you can guess what card's going to be in there, but for this you have no idea. But other than picking up the Ghost Rare and Baronet, there's also, I would not pick up the Ultra, by the way. This will fall out to probably $6. And if you want to get it then, fine. But the Ghost Rare is a lot better investment, in my opinion. And then the other thing I'm excited about in here is because I used to play a Trap Brigade Lyrilusc, is I'm excited for all the Lyrilusc cards. I just started ordering some of mine. Some of them I'm still waiting for them to fall out a little bit because between the 2 top-ended cards, that pays for your case. Well, I guess not now actually because it's 120, so never mind. So maybe these will start to come up. But I think people are saying you get about 3 Baronet per case. So that pays, I think a case is going for around 600. So there's still a lot of value that you need to pull out of this set. And that's kind of the way I like to calculate card prices, is looking at how much the cases go for and on average, how many of the top end cards you're going to pull, and then try to figure out what the value difference is and try to apply that to the rest of the set. But some of the cards I think that are really cheap right now that are okay to pick up is Ensemble Robin for Lyrilusc. This card's absolutely insane. Its effect is whenever your opponent special summons a monster, you can detach a material and bounce it back to their hand, and that's not once per turn. So that comes up quite a bit, as you would imagine. And then I would wait on Bird Call and Wagtail. Wagtail, in my opinion, is like, it's a decent card, but it's kind of a hard card to get out, like if you don't have in your hand. And a lot of times the way that you would get access to it is Bird Call, but Bird Call is a card that you want to search off of it. So I think this card will probably settle to $4 maybe, and then I'll pick it up then. But Bird Call is like an insane card for the deck. And I've been playing around with all the new cards online, and the deck is pretty good when you can combo off. I have run into a little bit of problems with like consistency, but I just started trying out Pot of Desires, and that's kind of fixed the issue for the most part, because all of the Lyrilusc monsters you're going to play 3 copies of, so you don't have to worry about like banishing a Garnet or something. And then other than that, that's pretty much it. It's pretty top heavy. But if you want to pick up the Lureless deck now, it's pretty cheap to come through and grab all of these commons and rares. And then if you wanted to wait on the top end stuff like Wagtail and Bird Call, you can. But I would pick up Ensemble Robin just because Ensemble, I don't know how to say that. I think it's Ensemble. Ensemble Robin's really good, and I think that it should definitely be more than $7. I think 10 to 12 would be what I was expecting for it. But that's about it for that set. If you want to hold on to these sealed, I can guarantee you in 3 to 4 months they'll be about the same price as the previous one, so like $75. So if you can get a good deal on these from somewhere, it wouldn't be bad to pick up if you can try to get them for 50 to 55. Next, I want to go over Ultimate Rare Forbidden Droplet. I just wanted to say I talked about this card when there were copies available for 190, and if you picked them up when I told you about it, you did really good, because now the lowest for a verified seller is 290. So that was an instant $100 gain. I do have 3 copies of these now, and I got the first one. I spent a lot too much on it just because I was worried it was going to get bought out, and I really wanted at least 1 copy. So I paid like $275, and so now it doesn't feel as bad. But when it was down to 190, I was like, damn. But I got the other 2 for around 200, so I'm pretty happy with that. But yeah, if you want to pick these up now, I wouldn't hurry, because I just don't see it going higher than this for a long time. But I also don't, it might retest 250, but it might not, because it's already out of circulation now we've got OTS pack 17, and that's usually when these prices spike because it's not easy to get anymore. The next card I wanted to go over is Infinite Impermanence, and I wanted to talk about all of the copies in general. First, we'll go over the Ultimate Rare. It's around 290. I absolutely would not buy this. This card, like Forbidden Droplet, I think will be down to the 180 to 190 range before it comes back up this way. It's just brand new, and a lot of people haven't had the chance to go out to locals and pull it yet. So just wait on that. Don't waste your money. But for the other copies, it's pretty much open season. They're all extremely cheap, and I think you should be picking up copies as fast as you can. I'm probably going to come through and order 50 copies of the Super Rare. Every time that reprint Infinite Impermanence, I feel like I'm like, oh, well, it's not going to come back up. And then I'm proven wrong every time. It's like when it got reprinted in Dual Overload, I could have got it for like 25. And I was like, no, I'm just going to wait. It's going to come down. This is like its 3rd reprint, or 2nd reprint rather. And it went up to like $45 to $50 when everybody started playing it. And then when the Gold Rare came out, it was like 16, 17 bucks. And I was like, no, I'm not going to get it. And then it was up to like 35. And then now this is out and everything's back down. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to make the same mistake that I've made before. So I'm going to see how many copies I can get actually. So, well, I don't trust them. But honestly, I wouldn't mind paying like $2 or $3 for shipping if you're averaging it over like a bunch of cards. But there really aren't a lot of copies available. So yeah, I'd have to pay $10 a piece, which I don't want to pay. I want to pay like $7 a piece and get a bunch of them. So I'd actually hold off on that. But if you want your play set for $7, $8, I would come get it now while you can. And then actually we'll go over the other copies too. So right now the ultra rares are going for around $15 to $16, 15 to 17. I would pick those up too if you want good long-term value. I just think that whenever the cards move up in price, it seems like people just want a copy and they don't care about the rarity. So they're just going to pick up the cheapest version. So what ends up happening is all of them kind of end up being around the same price. That's what happened with the Gold Rare recently, and the 2 ultra rares. Pretty much everything was the same price, maybe $1 to $2 difference. But since the Super Rare is locked behind you can get it for $10 and you just go buy the structure deck. I don't think that it would ever go as high as the other ones, but I think that it could easily be $18. But the structure decks are selling out if they're not sold out already. Well, I think actually now I think they have come down. There might be around like $12 to $13, but I think it's something that's going to sell out over time, similar to the Salmon Grade structure deck. And just like the Salmon Grade structure deck, the Ash Blossom ended up being $20. So I think the Infinite Impermanence definitely could be $20. There's less copies of Infinite Impermanence than there are of Ash Blossom. So that's just something to keep in mind. The next thing I want to go over is Dimensional Barrier. Right now, this has seen a little bit of spike in price. I picked up the 2017 Megatin version for around $3 a piece, and it has seen a price spike. I think right now it's probably around $6 to $7. Okay, so this is actually almost $10. That's pretty cool. I would pick up these if you can, because I think that these have a ton of potential, especially against Sword Soul, because you can just call Synchro and it's pretty much game over. But let's look at the original print, because this is getting into the zone where it's like high, almost as high as the original print, which I don't think in that case you would want to go for the reprint. You just want to get the original print. So let's see what the original print's doing. Okay, so you can get a near mint first edition for $10 here. And I'll tell you what, I'll give you until tomorrow morning. I'm buying this for sure. That's a great deal, because if you look at, we can filter for the other versions. And let's see where the next first edition falls. So you have these, actually got these two. So they're around $10 a piece, and then it kind of comes up to 13 to 14. But with the reprint being $10, I just think that, to me, that doesn't really make sense. Like, this has to give, either the reprint has to go down or this has to go up, because it just doesn't make sense for them to be the same price, even though they do look identical, of course. But yeah, I'll look to pick these up. And if you don't want to spend the money on the secret rares, you can also get an ultra rare for about 25 cents a piece. 17, I think that's probably up to $1 now. Can't really trust what it says on the front page. Let's see. Okay, so these have gone up to, they're around $1. So if you want to come get $1 copy, that's fine. I would just make sure that you have it in general, because it could come up for sure. The next card I want to go over is the Skater Don Walker. Since I've been playing around with Synchro, I've been messing around with this, and this is one of the best extenders you can play in Synchro. For one thing, it's a free level 8 Synchro monster. All you have to do is discard a card, and then you special summon this, and you special summon the level 3 tuner. Fire Ant Skater, I think it's called. But there's only one printing of this, and this pretty much has been fluctuating for the last few months between around $10 to $12 to around 22. Right now you can get one for around the 16, 17 range, but there really aren't a ton of copies here. Like, you can't even buy a playset. I mean, you could if you went individually, but there's no playsets available. So I think this card could definitely go up in value over time. It would just depend on when the reprint is, because if you want to bet on this card, if they do reprint this as like a super rare or a gold rare or common, this will definitely fall out to, I would say, like $6 or $7. But if it doesn't get reprinted, we've seen what happens with cards that are in demand, especially ultra rares out of these duelist packs. They can easily go to 25, $30. I'm not personally investing in extra copies right now. There was, I think a couple, like it was like a month ago, I came on here and they were $20, and then someone had a play set listed for $7 each for each copy. And I just picked that up, and then as soon as I got it in, I flipped it and sold them for $20 each. But yeah, it's up to you. The only reason I'm holding on to a play set is because I'm really enjoying playing this card right now. And maybe it'll see value, maybe it won't. But the next card the last card I want to go over is Discord. I know we've talked about this. One second. I bought a stack of these, and I finally have all of them in. I have sold quite a few now, but I think at one point I had like 85 copies maybe. But they look pretty cool. They're dual terminal. And I bought them for around 50 cents each, 50 to 60 cents each when I was talking about them earlier on one of the prior market watches, and now they're going for around $2. And they've been selling pretty good. So you have these light plays here, which is 3 copies, and then it's $2. And then that's 1 copy before we get down to like the 250 range. And these are my copies right here. I wouldn't advise you to buy my copies, honestly. If you're watching this, I wouldn't buy these for 225. I'm literally just flipping these, and they have been selling pretty good. I think I've sold 15 copies for, I think I sold the first 15 copies that I sold were at $2, but they were selling pretty quickly. So I pushed it back to 225. And it's something that I'm not anticipating getting rid of fast. I think it's going to take a long time for me to sell all my copies, but I think it was a pretty decent investment if you guys did end up picking them up when they were 50 cents. I didn't buy them out all at one time because I don't want to be like a dick to people that would like to get the card. So I just did it over a long period of time. But I hope you guys got your copies. And if you want some copies for cheap, like anybody on my channel, I'll send them to you for 50 cents a piece, what I paid for them, just plus the 75-cent shipping. But to be honest with you, this card really isn't nearly as good as Dimensional Barrier, because this is pretty specific, when it talks about synchro summoning. I'd say the only good thing is if synchro was like the main mechanic in the format, it lasts for 3 turns. So that definitely is an advantage over it. But for the most part, if you're going to play a card like this, I would either go for Summon Limit, or right now, I would really say to play Dimensional Barrier. That's definitely, I think, the strongest card you can play right now as far as like a floodgate type trap. But that's all I have for you today. Let me know in the comment section down below if there was any cards that you got that I had talked about prior and made some money on. I'd definitely like to hear stuff like that. And then also tell me what cards you guys have been looking at and what decks you're playing. I haven't made a market watch in like a week and a half, 2 weeks. So I wanted to make it a priority to get back on. I've been extremely busy the last couple of weeks. I just got back from a business trip in Wisconsin. So I'm excited to be back and start making more videos for you guys. But just like and subscribe. And like I said, comment down below what decks you're playing, what cards you're looking to buy, and if you enjoyed the market watch. But oh yeah, also I forgot, if there are cards that you want to go over, or you see that there are cards getting bought out, it would be really cool if you would leave in the comment section what cards are getting bought out, just so I can be aware and so I can go over it, or just if there's a card that you want to look at in general, we'll go over it. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.